So, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to this week's edition of Imperial as One's Belonging series, where we um, share the lived experiences of individuals from the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. People who have stopped to take a moment to reflect and to think about what it is that has taken them on their journey of belonging. And I say this every week that we have a special guest, and we have a man called um, Gardy Guiteau. I think I've got it right. All right. And he is, as far as I'm concerned, he's a professor of practice. He's a social justice warrior, trainer, and consultant. And he's the founder and principal of GMJG Training and Consultant. But he's so much more. And I just want to really welcome him to the platform and ask him a few questions about, can you tell me what it was or what it is that gave you your sense of identity and your sense of belonging when you were growing up?
Well, Wayne, thank you so much first and foremost for inviting me to be here with you. The whole series, I've had opportunity after some time to check it out. I am among some really honored guests, so I'm especially honored to have been asked. Looking at who all have been the guests that came before me, so it's great to be here with you. And specifically to this question about belonging, right? Because it really is kind of the cornerstone of my um, academic work, my professional work, and personal life. And when you ask, growing up, what made me have a sense of belonging, I go back to the experience of being, this young boy living in Haiti. I'm originally from Haiti,
Mhm.
um, and and having just an understanding that I'm Haitian and this is who I am and this is what my identity is. And having to then migrate to the United States with my family and all of a sudden not having a sense of, I belong to this new place, right? Where we've um, moved to was definitely one of the first instances of disconnect, right? Between feeling like I'm rooted somewhere and then being uprooted and then replanted elsewhere, right? And and being young, it's not easy for for the roots to find soil and to um regain strength, but it wasn't without some struggle, right? Because going from being Haitian to now being, a young black boy, right, in middle school in the US, who was for whom English was not a language that I spoke, and having to go into um, what we called ESL back then, or
Mhm.
TESOL, or English as a second language, or English as another language program, was really challenging, right?
Mhm.
Because it really, you know, made it clear to me that, oh wow, I don't belong right
Yeah.
here in this new land and in this new culture. But if you were to ask me now, right, as an adult, where I call home, and a lot of times I liken, having a sense of belonging to feeling like, a place is home, right? You can call it home. I would say that I make home and I have different homes in the US. And and I didn't really rediscover my home in Haiti until I was an adult, right, at university, going back
Mhm.
and visiting regularly to realize that, oh wow, there is something very specific about my sense of belonging as, somebody who identifies as Haitian American, right? This hyphenated identity that
Mhm.
that that is special, going back and realizing that, hey, Haiti's home, the US is home. I now have strong sense of belonging in the US, in the Northeast more specifically. I grew up in Boston,
Hmm.
um, lived and worked in Philadelphia. I have family in Florida, and so the long answer, I guess, is that, I came to understand, that I belong in these different places by virtue of finding home or making home,
Hmm.
despite initially, right, in the US being thrown off, right,
Hmm.
by the fact that, wait, I'm not, necessarily fitting in to what is expected of me, um, as a young Black child in that space, and then coming of age in it.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
When you realized that you were going to be leaving home, as it were,
Yeah.
was it just, you know what, the family's moving, you're moving, right? What was it a welcome move? Was it a enforced move? Did you understand why you were moving?
Yeah. I was young, right? I was 10.
Yeah.
So old enough to understand, oh, we're moving. And we had actually visited with my aunt in Florida prior to our move, a year or so before. And
Hmm.
so the idea that there were family in the US, was not foreign to me. And my parents had gone back and forth, visiting family before. But yeah, that's a really good question, because I was aware that we were moving, but I didn't know what it meant, right? Like, you don't really know that, oh, I'm leaving everything that is familiar to me, and that offers me a sense of belonging, right, to a place, to be moved, right, to a new place. Um, and the reason we moved, right, was not, it was a voluntary move, but it wasn't necessarily, you know, let me put it this way. People don't leave their homes willingly,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
There is something that either pushes or pulls you from, from where you are grounded. And at the time in Haiti, we had just come out of a major military-based dictatorship, father and son dictatorship, and my dad specifically had experienced, some state enforced violence as a result of it. And even though we were part of the small middle class that was in Haiti, and partly because we were part of the small middle class that was in Haiti, we were able to get visas to travel back and forth to the US,
Hmm.
and then decide, hey, you know what? It's no longer feeling home is no longer feeling safe.
Hmm.
Therefore, we need to move elsewhere for safety. And that's what that brought that about.
So,
So that's a really interesting and important question that you're asking. Yeah.
it was almost as a point of exodus for safety. There was,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily, had all things been safe and everything, there would have been no real necessity for you to have left, but there was a necessity and a need for the family to be safe.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
exactly that. For the family to be safe. And then, of course, if we get into, larger geopolitical and world systems,
Hmm.
analysis, there was also the fact that, as a, quote unquote third world country,
Hmm.
the opportunities for growth in Haiti were, a lot less, right,
Yeah.
than they were in the US. And so my parents also were looking at that, the
Yeah.
ability to continue to develop and evolve, right,
Hmm.
professionally,
Hmm.
as well as, financially. I believe that the opportunity to go to, and we'll talk about this a little bit,
Hmm.
but to go to university, that I did have in the US, and the caliber of academic training that I was able to have, um, in the US, I would not have had, right? Even
Mhm.
as a middle class child in Haiti, had my
Mhm.
parents not made that move, right?
Mhm.
So even though it was a forced um, migration to a certain extent, but it was a willing migration
Mhm.
for the very fact that the pull factors to move to the US were as strong as the push factors,
Yeah,
uh, you know,
yeah.
you think.
So, I like the way that you put that answer, to be honest, because it's actually highlights that um, there are multiple reasons why people transition from one area to another.
Yeah,
Um, and as you've highlighted, that educate the prospect of having better education um, with the aspirations, because that then demonstrates to me the aspirations of your family, the aspirations for a better life,
yeah,
because the life which they currently have was no longer in that safe space, as it were.
yeah.
So if you had the opportunity, you take the opportunity.
Exactly that. Exactly that. Um, yeah, and in some ways, I have cousins, who are about the same age as I and whose parents didn't have the wherewithal, right, to
Hmm.
make the move. And I have friends who have studied at a high level and have gone to university. And we've talked about this, the fact of, you know, regardless of the level of study that one has been able to achieve, whether or not the opportunities to actually apply your skills is available where you are
Hmm.
also is a major factor. And so
Yeah.
so I think the foresight of my parents to leverage the opportunity for the move, given the push factors
Hmm.
and the opportunities was also very important and paid off, right, for
Yeah.
me anyway, and the
Yeah.
rest of my siblings. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. So I'm going to just quickly jump into the fact that you were in an ESL class, so English as a second language class.
Yeah.
Did you, because I know when I've taught students who are in those classes, there is a tendency for people to think because you don't speak the language, you're not intelligent. Right?
It's funny that it's somehow that's a common trend.
Yeah, that's right. Right. It's got absolutely nothing to do with the ability.
Right.
It's just the fact that you don't speak English, so you're not as intelligent. And where the two connect, I have no idea.
And if anything, right, it couldn't be farther from not only the truth but also the research, right? That
Hmm.
that also points to when folks are in a position where they're having to learn a second or third language,
Hmm.
right? That cognitively there's a lot of amazing things that are happening in the brain to
Hmm.
allow them to then perform at a higher level in some ways, right? So for me, right, interestingly, learning English, as a, sixth year student from scratch was, actually a third language because in Haiti, my native tongue was Haitian Creole. And in
Hmm.
schools, right, we were learning and speaking French. And
Hmm.
so really, by the time I got to the States, it was about learning a third language. And yes, the assumption was that those of us in the ESL in the English as another language program were not as bright as the mainstream students. And not only was it an assumption, but the way that the um, resources were allocated internally in the school, you
Hmm.
know, um, reflected that, right?
Hmm.
Where our class was literally in the basement of the school. Like you can't make this up. It was literally in the basement of the school where my other peers had classes with other teachers that would go and they would go about the school
Hmm.
for their classes. We stayed in one classroom and had one teacher who worked with us, and then the other teachers would come to us. Um, and yes, the assumption was definitely that we were not going to excel. And interestingly, it's just funny because when we talked about my joining you for this conversation, this wasn't part of something that I thought that we would get to, but the reality is that, after my first year of, demonstrating that I'm actually quite bright academically, it was, decided that, hey, this student, and it was myself and a couple of others, um, should be, given the opportunity to go to what in Boston is called the quote unquote test schools. And so
Hmm.
these are schools for students who've tested, at a higher level, and they're still state schools, but they are, for students who are, basically at the honors level. And
Hmm.
even though my English wasn't, at the level of fluency of a native person, I ended up, for my seventh year at one of these schools, focused on math and science, and I think it was just demonstrative of not only, kind of the training academically, to be honest, that I got in Haiti, because that's another thing people assume, that
Mm.
academic training that you're getting there is subpar
Yeah.
to that which you would be able to have in a big country like the US.
Yeah.
And and the truth of it is that, in terms of maths and science and and general language abilities, I was excelling, and it led to my being moved or recommended for matriculation at that school. And that, I think, also, kind of put me on a particular trajectory, to be honest.
I was gonna ask how that made you feel having gone from the basement, right? Right. How did that make you feel having, because that kind of like probably was one of your first senses of achievement, having been in the US educational system.
Yeah, yeah, no, it definitely did offer a great sense of achievement and affirmation of one's capacity
Hmm.
and intellect. And at the same time, right, going from the basement to now a school of all high achievers, all of a sudden there was definitely the wait, hold on. I was a big fish in a small pond, and now all of a sudden I'm a regular sized fish in a big pond. And that definitely did cause some self-questioning of whether or not, oh wait, did someone make a mistake? Right? Yeah, I know I was bright, but these other kids, they're really bright.
Yeah.
Um, and it did take some time, as is the case, right, when imposter syndrome sets in,
Mm.
to realize that, oh, wait, a mistake wasn't made. I actually belong here with these other, smart kids. And if anything, there are ways that I'm smarter than some of these smart kids.
Yeah.
And there are some ways that they're smarter than I am. And
Mm.
that's what allows us to challenge each other and to have friendly competition, right?
Hmm.
Friendly academic competition among peers.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so that's definitely something that I remember, the initial like whoa to the okay,
Yeah.
everything, yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna be fine here. Yeah. So
It's it's those key transitional stages where you're challenged, you're placed outside of your comfort zone, where
mhm.
you then see the opportunity of development. Do you develop, what support mechanisms, I suppose I should ask at this time,
Yeah.
did you have as you were making those transitions? Clearly your family was supportive, but who else was there anyone extended beyond that who actually said, you know what? I can see this young guy, God, he's got potential. Were there any other individuals in your sphere of influence who were pushing that into you?
Yeah, no, thank you I would say 100%. My TESOL teacher, Mr. Johnson,
Mhm.
right, in sixth year, um, would have been one of those who first identified, hey, this kid's bright. Let's get him, sat for a test to see if he can get, to a particular course. And then, I remember English teachers in sixth and seventh grade. I remember my science teacher, right, in eighth grade. I
Mhm.
remember my music teacher, this amazing Black woman who, who was passionate about music, but also passionate about ensuring that her students who were of African descent were held, and that they were that that they were being poured into, and that they
Mm.
that their sense of self and sense of confidence about their ability to achieve at a high level um, was being nurtured, and she wouldn't take nothing less from us, right? So she set the bar really high and was like, yeah, I know it's high, but I think if you actually apply yourself, you're going to be able to, to hit this bar. So teachers like that, right, and mentors like that, I think, at that earliest age,
Mhm.
allowed for that. And then by the time I got into high school, the same thing, right? I remember, my honors biology teacher
Mhm.
being the one to kind of instill in me this amazing love for the sciences and for
Mhm.
biology specifically, that if that didn't happen, the school that I ended up applying to for university would not have been on my radar. Right. So
Right.
it's really interesting how, how one thing kind of leads to another.
Mm.
Because the way that this specific particular teacher taught, and his own passion for the subject matter,
Mhm.
right, instilled in us a passion for it, and to be able to seek it out, and that led to my applying to the summer program, that I did at BU, in biological sciences, and I got to do this my own lab project, and to write a report, and do all the things that are tied to that, at a university level as a 11th year student, and then that then led to me applying for this paid internship at MIT for the summer after my 11th grade year, and that advisor mentor is who said, "Hey, if you're really passionate about this track and being potentially, a geneticist, have you considered, this school called Brandeis University?"
Mhm.
And that's where I went. She was a bioinformatics um, faculty, and staff person, researcher. And when she said Brandeis University, I said, "Brand who?" Like, I had no clue what it was. And for most folks, right, in the UK, it might not be a common name, but at the time it was one of the top 25, 30 schools in the US. And specific to biological sciences and biological research, there was a lot of exciting things happening at Brandeis, and I thought to, okay, let me check this out, and started doing some research, and it looked like this was going to be, the thing for me to do. So that's kind of how I got on that trajectory. The passionate teachers, and then the passionate mentors, as well, and advisors.
That's amazing. And what about your core group of friends? Were they kind of like supportive in wanting to see you succeed
Mm,
and participating in that journey with you?
yeah. Um, I would say we were definitely kind of challenging each other in different ways.
Hmm.
And at the same time, if I'm honest, Wayne, both in high school and at university, there was always the challenge, right, of being one of the only.
Mm.
And the ongoing question of whether or not, right? Because that initial, question from sixth grade to
Mm.
seventh grade, at a higher level, oh wow, do I
Mhm.
belong here? And then getting comfortable was a reoccurring, right?
Yeah.
Um, experience, whether it was, when when I moved from middle school, to high school in the suburbs, and had challenge of being now in a predominantly white space, because in the city there was very mixed
Yeah.
space, and now being in a predominantly white space, the question of, do I belong here, right? Especially in the honors level classes, where I was one of one or two black or brown kids in those spaces, and the majority of my peers were white. Um, and similarly, going to a university where we were one of 93 black students on a campus of 4,000. And so the um, feeling of not fully fitting in was there. And at the same time, it did require the close-knit community of peers, who were excelling to reinforce one another and be supportive of one another,
Yeah.
right, as we moved through and move forward with our studies. So it's kind of a both and, I
I'm,
would say.
I'm just, I just want to capture on that a little bit because having come from Haiti,
Yeah.
you in a predominantly black environment, and then now you're in a predominantly white environment into did you feel this weight of responsibility being it's kind of like saying, well, I'm a representative of my
Mm.
race and my culture here. Did you have that weight of expectation on you, or was it, you know what, I'm just gonna do what I have to do, right? And I don't feel that pressure, as it were, of having to represent in that sense.
Yeah. Um, there definitely have been, in different instances for different reasons, that specific feeling, right?
Hmm.
So, as it relates to being someone who identifies as Haitian and American,
Hmm.
um, I definitely am always, and at a younger age, especially at university, was sharply aware of needing to represent, right?
Hmm.
And and having the responsibility of um, representing positively.
Hmm.
And in some ways, I think, if I'm honest, it's something that was instilled in me and my siblings, very early on, right, by our parents, who are proud people. Right? And so there's that. And then, as I kind of alluded to, becoming, right, Haitian American by virtue of my migration also came with becoming someone who identifies as Black, right?
Mm.
Because in Haiti, even though we're Black majority country, the idea of identifying as Black was not something that we needed to have,
Hmm.
because everyone, majority
Everyone
white,
was black.
and we
Yeah,
belong as such.
yeah.
And so then, being in a predominantly white space in the US, uh, claiming that identity and finding home, right, within Black spaces and in Black culture, and belonging in that, came with um, the responsibility of representing Blackness in a
Hmm.
positive way
Hmm.
and excelling. And
Hmm.
so, whether in high school or at university, being one of the only Black kids did come with the responsibility, whether I wanted it or not. And oftentimes I felt, this is unfair. Why do I have this responsibility
Yeah, yeah.
of having to, um, you know, represent for, the race in a
Hmm.
particular way? And sometimes that was something that I was proud about. And, other times it's something that, as we know, is unfairly put on
Mm.
students, and it becomes a burden, right?
Mm.
That can backfire.
Yeah,
And yeah, I think there is a way that was part of the equation, for me as well. And I would say, um, many of us who've worked in predominantly white spaces will say that even professionally ends
yeah,
up being part of the reality.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Totally agree with that. So when you did you alluded to the fact that you wanted to be a geneticist, right? And you went to university, you um even just the application to get there. Because I remember when we were talking that one of your advisors, when you said to them,
Oh, yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, there wasn't the belief that you could achieve or get to that particular university.
Yeah. Well, I mean, unfortunately, that ends up being part of the challenge that
Mm,
that many of us, coming from minoritized um, groups have to experience, right?
mhm,
And so yes, similar to, so many others, I tell you, I successfully applied for,
mhm,
summer internships 2 summers in a row,
mhm.
right? At Boston University and then at MIT. And then my advisor at MIT suggests that I apply to this high caliber university. And so I'm excited about it. And I'm like, and this is Wayne at the height of the Human Genome Project.
Yeah,
And so I'm thinking I'm going to be in there and I'm going to make a major contribution to the Human Genome Project.
that's right.
And so I excitedly go to my advisor and say, hey, this is where I'm thinking of applying to. And, I don't think he today would say that he meant any ill by it. But though his response was, Brandeis, are you sure? And the way that landed on me
Mm,
was, are you sure you have the capacity to
mm,
get in, let alone to succeed
yeah,
there?
yeah.
Um, and and even though um all of the evidence up to that point
Mm,
had had indicated that I would be able to get in, and that
yeah.
not only would I be able to get in, but I would succeed and do well. That statement by someone, who is,
In a
supposed to be helping me get to the next stage, totally, was a gut punch and kind of took the wind out of my sails.
yeah.
And it did require, in some ways, um, a lot of fortitude of self. And
Hmm,
I think I was fortunate also that I had other mentors,
hmm.
right? And that I had an experience, growing up within my family that offered a sense of self that had a level of confidence that I didn't let that dissuade me
Yeah,
from
yeah,
following through
yeah,
with my plan.
yeah.
And as an educator, I think about, and I've taught about the fact that so many advisors, unbeknownst to them, end up dissuading um, young folks from pursuing their dreams
Mm,
uh, that they have a capacity for, and actually, achieving what they're setting out to do, with a off-cuff comment that's based on assumptions and bias.
yeah.
Right. I think of so many, young black boys and young black girls or young women generally, right, wanting to go into, engineering or computer science who, who are dissuaded from doing so, just based on a comment
Yeah.
in an instance. So yeah.
So our words are incredibly important. I remember when we were discussing, we talked about the impact of the negative statement, or a statement which you, as you said, they may have just said it innocuously, not thinking about, but
Hmm.
it's how that statement lands and how you follow up on that statement,
Yeah.
because it then, and young people are fragile. They might have the bravado, but sometimes they are still very fragile. I like to think of them as being fearless, but having fear at the same time, because
Hmm.
the unknown is preventing them from knowing where and how we're going to get there. But most of them are willing to give it a try with the
Yeah.
right support mechanisms around them. So you ignored, because of ignored those, and you went to that university, and having gone there, um because that's genetics. But I know you
So what happened? How come I'm not a geneticist? So the story is that yes, so I matriculated
Mhm.
as a biology major, and 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 right away I actually, because of federal um grants and federal scholarship, um I had the ability to work and get paid, as a work study student, we call it. And my first work study job at the university, I landed again because I expressed strong interest, and came in, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to like be a geneticist. I landed a job at a lab,
Yeah.
in a biology lab, my first year at the university as basically a lab grunt, stirring Argos gels and and keeping that stuff from being contaminated so the scientists could run their experiments. And as I was doing this, I also, ended up continuing my core studies and
Mhm.
in chemistry and biology and and math and so on and so forth. But by my third semester, I started being a little bit, disheartened with what was waiting for me as a geneticist. Because speaking with the scientists, I realized it's very tedious work and it's very solitary work.
Mhm. Mhm. It can
And
be.
and at the same time, I started becoming very engaged and involved at the university as a student leader,
Mhm.
specifically in the Black and Caribbean student organizations, and being a leader around issues of inclusivity and all this stuff. And I think, the simultaneous recognition that I have this love and passion for the sciences, but my character isn't a good match for
There's
the
a
lab
dissonance.
work that was waiting for me.
Mhm.
Uh, and so I made the choice to switch into becoming a physical therapist, like a
Mhm.
good, immigrant child.
Mhm.
You I thought, hey, if I'm a physical therapist, I can still, do well and make my parents proud because I'm still in the sciences in some way. But even that, after I did an internship with a physical therapy office, I realized, oh wait, no, this is not for me either.
Mhm.
Uh, so in some ways, my student leadership and activism work on the campus, which was purely co-curricular, um, combined with having taken a class in the women's studies department called Blacks and Jewish Relations in the U.S.
Mhm.
And I took that by happenstance. I actually ended up taking that class because some of my um, friends who were young Black women had taken a previous course with a faculty member and ended up saying, "Hey, you need a writing intensive course because to complete, my degree,
Yeah.
there are different courses, that one needs to take, and writing intensive was one of them." And they're like, "This is an amazing teacher, and it's a great topic. Why not take this class with us?"
Mhm.
Unbeknownst to me, that this course would kind of blow open and put into perspective everything that I had been engaging and
Working
thinking
through.
about, until that moment, right? So after taking that class, that helped me make meaning of not only issues of race, but class and gender and my own positionality, as someone who was coming of age in the United States, as
Mhm.
a young Black man,
Mhm.
first generation to college, all of that. Um, I realized, oh wait, there's something here that I need to pursue. And by the time I graduated, I had done um, some work with a sociologist, who was also a mentor, and one of my other mentors at the university was the dean of students, and he oversaw the student cultural organizations, and unbeknownst to me, the process of doing that kind of led me to um, a degree in psychology And even though I'd completed all of the prerequisites to become a physical therapist, by the time I graduated, that had become, that had been in the rear
Yeah.
mirror. And being a social justice advocate was what was in front of me, and working for that and toward that is what I ended up doing my master's degree in.
You know what I love about that, what how you've described your journey is the access to opportunity or making opportunities whereby you had the choice of being able to then select which career path actually then enabled your passion.
Hmm.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
just listening to what you've said, that's what comes out to me, that the internships provided you with an opportunity to say, actually, I'm quite good at this, and you were then able to channel that to ensure that you got to a good university. Yeah. And then the exposure of the multiple things that you were doing then enabled you to have that informed choice to say, actually, I don't want to be that lab grunt, right? I don't want to be there. I'm a more of a people person. I want to understand how people respond, etc., and see how we can make life better for people.
Yeah.
And I think that so it's the importance of providing those opportunities for young people to discover what it is that they could potentially find interesting and make a life's passion for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%. And and having had the opportunity to work at universities as as manager and leader of different, programs aimed specifically at supporting students,
Mhm.
and having had opportunity to teach as well, right? Be in the classroom at university, I would say that the academic work, right, that's happening in the classroom is critical and is important, but as important is what's happening, the co-curricular work, right? That we're offering, the co-curricular opportunities
Mhm.
that we're offering to students, is so critical. And that's at the undergraduate level as well as the
Mhm.
graduate level, right?
Mhm.
Because overseeing an office for social justice and inclusion at the university I worked at some years ago, we had a number of graduate students who worked in my office and who I had the opportunity to mentor, and crafting those spaces as leadership development spaces, both for undergraduates and graduate students, really, was something that I became passionate about because that's what I
Yeah.
experienced myself.
Yeah.
And as I was going through it, I didn't know that's what was happening, right? That I was encountering all of these different ways of becoming, right?
Mhm.
Because I could have continued and stayed on and become a geneticist, and and maybe I would have enjoyed it eventually once I got
Be
at a higher level,
yeah.
or maybe I would have continued and I would have been like, what did I do? I hate my job, right? I should be doing something else. But because those different opportunities were presented to me, I was able to get in where I fit in a particular way. And so I would say, yeah, the importance of offering students of different backgrounds the ability to encounter um, themselves and different versions of themselves and others
Yeah.
is critical. Um, and I would say also, in some ways, all of the things came together eventually, right? Because one of the projects and programs that I got to do as a leader in higher education, before, and in some ways we talked about as an undergraduate, the leadership work I was doing, the co-curricular work, which was my side hustle, became my main hustle.
Yeah.
And that has happened again, right, in my professional life, where my consulting work is now my main work. But one of the things that I was doing prior to shifting into that was developing, supporting, and implementing um, programs for first generation college students who are wanting to go into the STEM fields.
Hmm.
and recognizing and holding the fact that, for so many of us um, who don't have examples of who um, might look like us that we can emulate, giving those students the opportunity to overcome the initial barriers,
Hmm.
right, of entry into the space, into the field is so critical because the first 2 years, right, we found was so important
That's
in
right.
ensuring that, they either are sticking with it or bail. And so all of those experiences and those encounters, whether undergraduate or graduate level, the graduate assistantships I held all came together, I think, to the professional space that I
Mhm.
entered and to the, professional work that I get to do now, right, with
Yeah.
organizations
Yeah.
around issues of inclusion and creating inclusive and effective teams and the like.
I'm going to just ask you to just elaborate a little bit on what you do now and how those experiences which you've kind of like highlighted and alluded to,
Hmm.
how you've utilized and used those. And as we had said, going from a side hustle to your main occupation, as it were,
Yeah.
what is it that you do and how is it that you're effecting change is I suppose the question.
Yeah, no, thank you. So as you introduced, right, I founded and I'm the, principal of GJG Training and Consulting. It's a consultancy, that's really focused on, what I say is dialogic inclusion work at the intersections. And
Hmm.
so our bread and butter is really supporting, organizations, whether they are, universities. I've had opportunity to work with, different programs at universities, not-for-profit organizations, corporate organizations with implementing initiatives and strategic um, programs that are aimed at ensuring that the folks that they're attracting are as diverse as possible, both in terms of, not just demographic diversity, but, intellectual diversity, experience and background diversity. And that, as we know, just having diversity doesn't mean that people are going to feel included and
Mm.
have a sense of belonging. And of course, we know that all the research points to that when you have, you know, in an academic community, even in the classroom, right? When you have
Hmm.
diversity of thought, if those diverse students don't feel that they have value, that they're valuable enough to bring their full selves to that space,
That's right.
the brilliance that is sitting there in the classroom
Is lost.
is lost. It's never going to come to the fore to
Hmm.
then, bounce off of each other and come up with something even more brilliant,
That's right.
right? And so that's the case as well. So what I loved and why I appreciate that you invited me is that, belonging really is the end goal, right? In very
Hmm.
many of the work that I do, right? Supporting organizations to attract and retain, diverse faculty, staff, students, colleagues, um, and ensuring that those folks stick around long enough,
Hmm.
to bring their gifts to your mission and to your vision of why the organization exists to begin with. And the way to do that is by ensuring that inclusive practices are being implemented and that policies, that focus on fairness, um, are being implemented
Hmm.
to mitigate bias, as much as possible. And in so doing, hopefully, foster a sense of being a belonging in a culture where folks, feel like, yeah, this is a place where I belong, where I can call home,
That's right.
my
Absolutely.
professional home, my academic home, or
Yeah.
whatever it.
Yeah. I love that answer. I love that answer because you create in what you've described, you're creating the environment for for the seed which is planted within the students to flourish and grow. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what so the policies, the practice, the behaviors is what you're helping people to understand this is what is best. And when you say it's best for the student, it's not just best for the student, it's actually best for the teacher as well, you know. You know? So
Yep.
it's a mutually beneficial space which you're creating when you're implementing intentional practices. And that's what you're teaching people. It's funny because I think so many of us, it's like riding a bike. It looks so easy, but the
Hmm.
first time that you do it, it's not easy at all,
No.
right? Um, and it's about how we provide those spaces for students and faculty to be able to know how we generate and create those spaces, you know?
Yeah.
So I love that. I'm just wary of time, right?
Right, right, right.
Yeah, we
This
could.
time flew by. I didn't
I'm
realize we were already almost at the end.
all right. So I'm gonna push on to the last couple questions, which are kind of like the opposite questions of the same thing. There are other things which I want to ask, but I'm just yeah. Um, but I'm gonna go to these final two questions, and they are: what advice would you have given to your younger self?
Mm.
And there's multiple stages where you could refer to in your younger self, but
Yeah.
what advice would you have given to your younger self? And then the second part is, what do you think your younger self would look at you now and say, wow?
Yeah. So the first one, I thought about this a bit, because you gave me, fair warning, and I still didn't come up with the best answer that I wanted to give, to be honest. But the first thing that did come to mind was that I likely would have said to my younger self to have more fun,
Hmm.
because I was serious. I was about my business. Uh, and as a result, I was working, 20 plus 25 hours per week at one point, while, taking an overload in classes at university
Hmm.
to and taking classes in the summer to finish my bachelor's degree, which in the US is done in 4 years and 3 years
Hmm.
instead.
Hmm.
And in retrospect, I would have told my younger self, yo, bruh, just chill, savor this moment. Don't rush out, take it easy. So because too often I think those of us who are high achievers focus on the achievements,
Hmm.
don't actually take the time to savor the process and the experience,
Yeah,
right, that
yeah,
we're having,
yeah.
and to let it sit with us and to sink in, and to allow for it to, um, to truly make us, right, fully who we are.
Hmm.
Um, that's not to say that the experience I have didn't make me who I am, but I think, um, had I stopped and smelled the roses more
Yeah,
often, I
yeah.
think there are things that I would have done differently that
Hmm.
would have allowed me to be an even more robust version of myself,
Yeah.
if that
I'm
makes
just,
any sense.
it makes 100% self.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean. Just
yeah,
take time to savor.
yeah,
Take
exactly.
time to savor. This isn't, you're not going to get this moment back. So spend a little time savoring this moment because once it's gone, it's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. And in some ways, right, as you said it out loud to me again, I think of, just the importance of being able to say to oneself that I've had this achievement and I can celebrate it before I move on to the next major achievement.
yeah,
Because, those of us who've been inculcating in being high achieving sometimes forget to take the time to celebrate the successes.
yeah,
And fortunately, I learned as a professional, right, supervising and managing teams, that is something you have to do.
yeah,
You have to take the time to celebrate the wins, lest you, um, you know, demonstrate to folks that all you care about is boom, 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 boom,
that's right.
and not actually caring for the work that they've put in. So
Yeah,
taking the time to savor,
yeah,
is something that I think I would say more, because had I done that, I probably would have had the opportunity to study abroad,
yeah,
which I
yeah.
didn't.
Yeah. There's always time. Always
Yeah.
time.
Well, where am I now?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's always time. And then the other question about what do you think your younger self would say? Wow.
Right. Yeah. So that is, definitely related to, in some ways the piece of not having had, the moment, right? Because in undergraduate, the ability to take some time to study abroad, and at graduate, graduate studies, the ability um to submit papers and going to conferences, I then was able to do that. And so my younger self, whether it's, the 9-year-old in Haiti, right? Or the 11-year-old in Boston, or, um the 32-year-old, right, in Philadelphia would look and say, "Oh wow, right, you're living in London and you now call London one of your homes." Right? So we didn't get to chat about this, but the reality is, like London has now become one of the places where I call home and I have a sense of belonging in. And so I think that would be one of the things, that my younger self would be surprised by, not only where I've made home and where I now have a sense of belonging, but, how all of the different experiences have led to the current work that I do. And that one of the reasons why I ended up going to um, the University of Massachusetts in Amherst for my, graduate studies in social justice education was that I was, wanting to continue working in cultural studies in one
Mhm,
way or another, and then discovered that, oh, what I'm wanting to do is actually social studies, is social sciences, is social justice work.
mhm,
Um, and that I want to work, in supporting the Black diaspora. I want to
mhm,
study it. I want to, and so my younger self would look and say, "Wow, wow, G, you've done a lot, and
mhm.
kudos to you for actually, doing not exactly what you thought you were going to be doing,
Yeah. Mhm.
but an amazing version of it,
Yeah.
that we can be proud of."
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You know what? This has been an amazing. I told you guys at the start. I said we had an amazing guest on, right? And he has not proven me wrong. He's actually exemplified that process of understanding and that process of, you know what? Home is where you belong and where you can find
Mm.
those connections and where you can find those places where you can put down roots and know that once you've put them down, you've got those support and people will help you where you are, and I love that. I really do love that. And I know that the work that you're doing and you're continuing to do is something which is incredibly valuable for our community, right?
Yes.
And
Thank you.
that's just not the diaspora which lives here in the UK, but it's across the entire diaspora because our stories need to be told and our stories need to be heard. And the platform which you've developed is enabling that to happen. So I want to just say a very big kudos and thank you for being our guest this week and for enabling this to happen. All right. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you so much for inviting me.
All right. So I'll just finish off very quickly. Um, where am I going with this? Right. So next week. Well, my guest has not yet confirmed, but that's okay. We'll have a guest in line next week. But if you haven't seen some of the other the other interviews, please go to the YouTube channel, which is tinyurl.com/belonging dash IAO. And you can see we've done over 200 now. 200 guests on belonging. So that's quite an achievement. We're almost 5 years old. So let's keep going and hit that 5 year mark. And the other thing then is this show would, or this interview series would not have been able to happen without the wonderful guests who have and continue to be examples and share their experiences of belonging. Take some time just to tell someone a little bit about your story and ask them to tell you a little bit about their story and see where we connect, because that's where we find belonging. So um, until next week, we will have another great session. Have a good week and take care of yourselves. Okay? So thank you and goodbye.